Really, from what I could see from my research, where you and Trump first made friends, I should say. Before then, you weren't friends.
No, that's right.
You were quite critical of Donald Trump before then. And you've been probably asked this a million times, but when I actually didn't know this until literally today. Your assessment of him is similar to the Democratic assessment of him. Your assessment of him back in 2016 is similar to the Democratic assessment of him. There was a private message between you and a roommate where you said he was either a cynical arsehole or America's Hitler. How do you go from that position to vice president of the same person?
So JD Vance has been doing the media rounds in light of his new book coming out. And in this clip, we see him sit down with Steven Bartlett, who is the podcast host of Diary of a CEO. And in this particular segment, we see Steven Bartlett serve JD Vance's own words on what he said about Donald Trump and the reason behind why he changed his mind. As usual, to watch the clip in full, I'll give you guys my thoughts towards the end.
You run for Senate.
Yeah.
And you're successful. And this is really, from what I could see from my research, where you and Trump first made friends, I should say. Before then, you weren't friends.
No, that's right.
You were quite critical of Donald Trump before then. And you've been probably asked this a million times, but when I actually didn't know this until literally today.
Okay.
I read the piece you'd written in The Atlantic where you criticised him for taking advantage of the struggling working class. What Trump offers, this is your quote, is an easy escape from pain. To every complex problem, he promises a simple solution. He can bring jobs back simply by punishing offshore companies into submission. As he told a New Hampshire crowd, folks are too similar with the opioid Scrooge. He can cure the addiction epidemic by building a Mexican wall and keeping the cartels out. He will spare the United States from humiliation and military defeat with indiscriminate bombing. It doesn't matter that no credible military leader has endorsed his plan. He never offers detail for those plans to work because Trump is cultural heroin. He makes some people feel better, but he cannot fix all that ails them. And one day they'll realize it. Very tough words against Trump.
Long time ago, but
2016 and 10 years ago. What changed?
Well, let me pick up. First of all, I think you always have to be able to acknowledge when you're right and when you're wrong. And there was a lot I was right about in 2016, but just pick up on something. Can you read the line for me again where I talk about no credible military leader has endorsed these plans?
Yeah, it says, it doesn't matter that no credible military leader has endorsed his plan.
Okay. So what I would say is I wrote that. I believed it when I wrote it. And reading it now, I'm almost embarrassed that I wrote it because it was so obviously absurd. In fact, the fact that Donald Trump was misaligned with the military experts and the military leadership of 2016 was a good thing, not a bad thing. Think about those military leaders. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the troops, the people who serve, the people who put on a uniform, but you could make a very credible argument that from the early 90s until, at least 2016, America hadn't won a war in 30 years. Like, there's a reason why Donald Trump mistrusted the military leadership, and he was right. And so much of what I think the president represented at the time was a recognition that American institutions had become sclerotic and broken, and he was a weapon to break down those institutions.
Your assessment of him is similar to the Democratic assessment of him. Your assessment of him back in 2016 is similar to the Democratic assessment of him. There was a private message between you and a roommate where you said he was either a cynical arsehole or America's Hitler. How do you go from that position to vice president of the same person? What is that journey?
A crazy journey, man. But again, I mean, it's, you have to ask yourself, first of all, I thought Donald Trump would be a failed president if he got elected. He was not. I thought that America's institutions were fundamentally functioning. They were not. I thought that the military leaders who told us this about a war, or the scientific experts who told us this other thing about a pandemic, were fundamentally, maybe not always right, but fundamentally wise people who were mostly right. I was wrong.
What have you observed behind the scenes that JD didn't see? So in operation, when you see him making decisions?
So, I mean, I want to caveat this with saying that, I didn't know him well by the time, I voted for him in 2020. Obviously, very, very involved in the 2024 campaign, well before I was ever his vice presidential nominee. I had that change based purely on what I saw from the outside. It's not like I had insider knowledge about Donald Trump, and that's what caused me to change. Now, what I will say is that having the insider knowledge, one thing that really mistakes or gets wrong, that piece in the Atlantic, that's where that piece was published, is that Donald Trump is much different as a human being than the media makes him out to be. He's very warm. He's a very loving person to his kids, to his grandkids. He's incredibly generous. Like if you see Donald Trump, in the Oval Office, it's like he has to give you a gift. Like he has to, whether it's, a water bottle or a MAGA hat or a coin or a pin. Like he's one of these people who he really likes hospitality. He really likes making other people happy. I had no understanding of that from him from the outside. What I would see is, clips of him arguing with a journalist, and that was it. And that gives you a very, very one-dimensional view of a person. So yeah, I definitely from the inside have seen a much, much more multidimensional figure. The thing I say about Donald Trump is I remember this in 2016. And in hindsight, it's just so, so dumb. People would say that he was dumb or that he wasn't very smart. He's super smart. Like he reads a lot. He understands people at an instinctual level better than anybody that I've ever known. But he is a very, very, from a pure IQ perspective, he's a very smart person. And it's interesting that so many people, if you give Donald Trump an IQ test with the other 45, 46 presidents that the United States has had, I guarantee he'd be either near the top or at the top. And the entire American media in 2016 had convinced me, at least, that he was not a smart person.
So I'll leave the link in the description so you can go ahead and check out the entire thing. But look, I just want to share a few of my thoughts on this segment because I thought this segment was really quite telling. So it's about an hour and 50 minutes interview. Like I said, I'll leave a link below so you can check it out. But look, what I want to say is this. Vance didn't get it wrong on Donald Trump in 2016. He read him perfectly. Him referring to Donald Trump as cultural heroin or an easy escape from the pain for desperate people. He read him perfectly. The problem is that he understood the con, but then he signed up for the con when it started to benefit him. And this isn't anything new. We've seen this before. So many of the people that spoke ill of Donald Trump in 2000, leading up to 2016. Now, yeah. And then even when you take a look at the people who spoke ill of Donald Trump after January 6th, when they saw that Donald Trump's base was still with him, they all walked their criticism of Donald Trump back. Every single one of them. They looked and they believed exactly the same way JD Vance thought to himself, listen, the reality is this. People aren't going to take Donald Trump serious. This is what he thought when he said these comments in 2016. This is what he thought, but when he saw that Donald Trump had built a cult following, a cult base, he then changed course. Why? Because it would benefit him politically. And fast forward to today, he's the vice president of the United States of America, who is aligned up to be the nominee going into 2028. And we've seen this with so many people when it comes to MAGA. Now, I want you guys to notice something. He's not embarrassed about the comparison to Hitler. He's embarrassed because of the fact that he wrote it down. He actually had it there in writing. And the point of saying, well, Donald Trump was right not to listen to any of the military leaders because none of them had won a war in the past however many years. Well, Donald Trump didn't listen to his military leaders when it came to Iran, according to reporting. And guess what? He's just lost the war in Iran as well. So I don't even understand the talking point. Honestly, this is just the entire MAGA conversion strategy story in one segment. They see the danger clearly, and then they decide that the danger is a career opportunity. You see it with political commentators. You see it with some of the politicians, and you see it all over. This is what it is that they do. They will align with Donald Trump's cruelty and his nastiness simply because it's going to benefit them financially. And the last point it is, I'll end on this. JD Vance tried to say something along the lines of, when you see him with his children and people, he's the warmest person in the world. This is that. What a stupid comment to make. I'm sure if you were to see any of the Ayatollahs from Iran, I'm sure that with their grandchildren and with their children, they're probably the most loving grandfather in the world. Hitler, he was probably the most loving grandfather and father to his children if he had any. So making that comparison to try and insinuate that Donald Trump is a nice person, it's just ridiculous, but it shouldn't be no surprise. This is what it is that MAGA are about and what it is that they do. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this in the comment section below. And like I said, if you want to watch the interview in full, I'll leave a link in the description.